How's it going, everyone? Day 3, path 13. Let's get started. Oh, I almost forgot my thinking cap. Let's get our thinking caps on, everybody. Make sure that we're focused and concentrating. All right, here we go. Path 13, Gargophias. We're starting in the Nightside of Eden. So, here we go. Let's go ahead and this time we will actually open with the image of the card. All right, Gargophias. Right there. Okie doke. But we're going to start in the Nightside of Eden as opposed to the Shadow Tarot. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. Hope you're ready to learn. Hope you're ready to explore your consciousness and, yeah, have fun. This is for Gargophias. The 13th path is charged with the lunar kala. The name of its shadow guardian is Gargophias, which should be vibrated or howled in regular repetitions and the key of G sharp. Note here says the liquid nature of this entity suggests that the evocation be accompanied by some stringed instrument such as the vina, the zither, or harp. Okay. Her sigil should be painted in silver on a black circle. Her number is 393, a number of supreme importance in the draconian cult in its thelemic phase. The number 393 contains the numbers 39, there's a note, and 93, there's another note. So, 39 is 13 times 3, which is the number of this tunnel. And then it says for 93, thrice times 31, the number of Al, God, and of La, not. Okay. The obverse path is concerned with Al, while the tunnel here treated is concerned with La. Furthermore, 3 plus 9 plus 3, 393. 3 plus 9 plus 3 equals 15, ought to 15, the devil. And 393 is thrice 131, the number of Pan and of Samael. A note here says the pivot or center of the zodiacal clipoth, or clipote. So, 393 is thrice 131, the number of Pan and of Samael, whose wife is the elder Lilith, the Lady of Night, or Lilith, or not. The Lady of Night, or not. The Great Negative. 393 is also the number of, this is a word. It says SHPHCHH. I'm going to take that to mean Shin, Pe, Chet, He. Looks like Shafacha, maybe? Anyway, I'll keep reading. The Great Negative. 393 is also the number of Shepecha, the typical concubine or whore who later became Sefech. Okay, so it's probably Sefecha. Okay, the typical concubine or whore who later became Sefech, the consort of Thoth. Sefech means the number 7. She is therefore an image of Typhon. Okay. According to Gerald Massey, Sefek is a survival of Kethek, or Kepsh, of the 7 stars, once worshipped at Ombos as the living word. By the later solar cults, she was abhorred as the great harlot. The word Kepsh means, literally, the hinder thigh, a symbol of the vagina, which is itself an image of the primeval Typhon, the mother of Set. She typified the first parent known at a time when the role of the male in procreation was unsuspected. Keep that in mind. There was a time in our development where we just thought that the woman just generated life and children. And then one day we found out that it takes two to tango, essentially. So we're speaking of a primordial Typhon, the mother of Set, typifying the first parent known at a time when the role of the male in procreation was unsuspected. Because she had no consort, she was considered to be a goddess without a god, and her son, Set, being fatherless, was also godless, and was therefore the first devil, the prototype of Satan of later legends. And there's a note here. Says, see Cults of the Shadow, page 51. Okay. Continuing. One of the totems of Typhon was the dove. Oh, that's interesting. This was continued by the solar cults, where it typified the male bearer of the Ruach, or creative spirit, attributed to the element air. The dove depicted on the Great Seal of the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, is the Typhonian bird of blood, and it can be shown by gematria that the emblems contained in that seal are Kabbalistically equivalent to the number 393. I'm going to show this seal here. Forgive my printed PDF of the Nightside of Eden, but you do what you got to do, you know. You do what you got to do. So that's what we're discussing now. If you can't find a book, print it out one page at a time. Do what you got to do. Anyway, the all-enclosing vesica is the Venusian door. See description of tunnel 14. Dalet, which is the number 4. The eye, note 7, ion 70, and the triangle or pyramid of spirit is 370. There's so many notes here. I'm not going to fragment the flow. The dove, Holy Ghost, Geist, or gust denotes the element air and the letter Aleph, 1. The grail or chalice into which the dove dives is represented by the letter Chet, 8, and the yod within it. Remember that Chet also means fence. The secret seed or bindu, yod, the secret seed or bindu at the heart of the yantra is 10. The total numeration is thus 393. Further, 393 is the number of Eosic, the name of a great old one whose influence is transmitted by the present head of the outer of the OTO, Kenneth Grant. Further, 393 is the number of Eosic, the missing, or, gotta turn the page, the missing or hidden 4 is the Venusian circle at the heart of the sigil of Eosic. Here again, we have another glyph here, or sigil. Okay. In this sigil, the goddess is concealed, because she abides above the abyss on the path joining Hokmah and Binah. The integers of 393, 3 plus 9 plus 3, total 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6, the number of the sun. I can see why some people think that this is all just madness. Just add numbers until you get one that's useful. But there really is more behind it than that if you're sophisticated enough to see it. The integers 3 times 9 times 3 multiply to 81. 81 equals 9, the number of the moon. And there's a note here. 81 is the mystic number of the moon, which rules the 13th Kala. It is also the number of Alim, the formula of witchcraft. Looks like Aleph, Lamed, Yod, Mem. Note that 15 plus 81 equals 96, and 9 plus 6 equals 15. Also 6 plus 9 equals 15, which denotes again, Atu, 15. Is that, no, sorry. Yeah, it looks like 16, but it's a 15 with an exclamation mark. So, Yeah, and the 15th Atu, of course, is the devil. Okay, moving on. 393 multiplied by itself produces the number 154,449. Notice the persistence of the number 15, which is attributed to Baphomet, the devil, or Baphomet, and therefore to the god Set. The number 444 is that of the brazen serpent and of Zepardo, meaning frog. Zepardo, probably. It's Tzadi, Pe, Resh, Dalet, and then Oyen, maybe. From the Egyptian Kheper Ta, the frog-headed god of the earth. Zepardo, interesting. The number 9 is that of the moon and that of Yesod, the place of the secretion of the Yazidi. But the word secretion is spelled secret hyphen ion. SECRET-ION. Secretion is the secret ion. One of the things I love about this book. And the Yazidi has a note here, 14. See the cults of the shadow, glossary under head Yesod. Okay, moving on. Astro-symbolically, 393 is Saturn, Luna, Saturn. The moon warded on either side by the god Set. A remarkable property of the number 393 is that it reduces to unity. 3 into 9 is 3. 3 into 3 is 1, which is Achad. 13, unity. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so Achad is 1, or unity, but its gematria totals 13. So there's some wisdom there. Applying the full formula of the pentagram, i.e. 5 times 5 equals 25, to 393, the key number of the great work is obtained. 393 plus 25 equals 418, which is the number of Abrahadabra. It says 15 here. For consideration of this important number, see Crowley's Liber 418 and the commentaries to all. Yeah. So, 393 is less 666 by 273. This says the number of Chagall Choronzon is 666, the great beast of the abyss. 393 is less 666 by 273, which is the number of Or. Genuz, the hidden light. It says Aleph, Vav, Resh, Gimel, Nun, Vav, Zayin. The hidden light, or Genuz. And of Aben Masu Habonim, the stone which the builders rejected. Which is interesting, because there's actually more hidden in that phrase. But I'm not going to get into that right now. Also of Arbo, meaning 4. Arba? Yeah. Arbo. It's spelled A-R-B-O, but it's Arba. In this case, the hidden light, or the door, Dalet, at the heart of the sigil of Eosic. Okay. 393 is less 718 by 325. 718 has a note, the abomination of desolation, and the number of the stele of revealing. See the Typhonian trilogy. 393 is less 718 by 323. My mistake. 393 is less 718 by 325, which is the mystic number of Mars, the planetary vehicle of Ra-Hor-Kuit, and of Nor, N-O-R-H, the virgin or damsel equating with the goddess Kali in her lunar aspect. The persistence of the number 9 is also remarkable. 393 multiplied by 3, the number of units of which it is composed, equals 45, and 4 plus 5 equals 9. 45, Adam, ADM, man, species composed of A, breath or spirit, via Aleph, and Dim, blood, are the mystical lunar liquid. 45, it's probably Dam, yeah, the mystical lunar liquid. 45 is the mystic number of Yesod. It is also the number of Mad, M-A-D, the Enochian word for God. Interesting. While the series of numbers from 1 to 9, i.e. 45, is the number of Agial, the intelligence of Saturn or Set, and of Amid, the fool. Okay. The sigil of Gargophias shows an upright sword with an eye each side of the blade, set over an egg and crescent. The sword is typical of the woman, as it is the first cutter in two. The haunch, or thigh, constellation of sickle shape, was the celestial symbol of Typhon, which, in terrestrial terms, is the vagina of the woman that divides and becomes two. The slit, or bifurcating one. The two eyes represent the dual lunation, celestially, and the two phases of the feminine cycle with emphasis on the periodic eclipse. Yeah, we're not going to break that down. I imagine everyone here listening knows what the two phases of the feminine cycle are. The egg is 3/4 full, which indicates the 9 months of gestation. The dry phase immediately preceding the deluge, characterized by the outgush of the amniotic fluid. Interesting. This aspect of the formula is latent in the egg and does not manifest until the 15th path, the path of the mother. The animal sacred to this kala is the stork, traditionally associated with childbirth, the dog, companion of the virgin huntress, and the camel. The camel is the chief totem of this path, for it traverses the desert of the abyss. It is the traditional ark or ship of the desert. Its humps contain the vital liquid of life that sustains the adept during his crossing. There's an interesting metaphor to be had there about fat and fluid. But moving on. The 13th path is thus the path of the virgin, who contains within herself the unawakened potential of the wife, who is ascribed to the next path. 1 second. My apologies. Okay. The position of these two paths, 13 and 14, constitute the sign of the cross. The abyss is the place of crossing over from the world of appearance, phenomenon, represented by the obverse of the tree, to that of the disappearance, noumenon, represented by the hind side. Okay. The magical powers of the kala of the moon include clairvoyance and divination. Not the kind of divination associated with the 11th kala, which issues ventriloquially via the open womb, but divination by dreams emanating from the sealed womb at night, when the lunar light is eclipsed. The 13th, 14th, and 15th kalas, or paths, resuming as they do the full formula of the female, form the primal cross, or place of crossing over from the material world into the world of ghosts or spirits. The virgin menstruates and is sealed, dark, unillumined, unawakened. The wife, or whore, is open, awakened. Her formula is love. The mother, again, is sealed, but after a different fashion, for she brings forth what is shut in her womb. The menstrual ensigns of the 13th kala assumes the forms of lemures. Although most lexicons derive this word from the Latin lemures, plural spirits of the dead, note here, the concise Oxford Dictionary is the source of that. The term connotes or connotes more than the ghosts of the departed. For the 13th tunnel is haunted by the ape-like teratomas spawned upon the 12th path, which seep into the lunar miasma via the sleep of the virgin. Thus, the description given in lexicons of the terrestrial lemur provides a more exact definition: kinds of nocturnal mammal allied to monkeys. I don't know if you've ever seen a lemur before, though, but they're very liminal in their markings. They're striped, they're light and dark, they howl, they flit from tree to tree. It's very interesting. According to an initiated tradition from which Blavatsky drew much information, the atavisms of Lemuria, note here, a stratum of larval and pre-human consciousness long antedating even the epoch of Atlantis. Okay, According to an initiated tradition from which Blavatsky drew much information, the atavisms of Lemuria swarm upon this path 13, and monstrous shapes reminiscent of, yet vastly more hideous than, the natural lemur. Lovecraft hinted at them more than once, and the idea of them prompted him to observe that there is about certain outlines and entities a power of symbolism and suggestion, which acts frightfully on a sensitive thinker's perspective, and whispers terrible hints of obscure cosmic relationships and unnameable realities behind the protective illusions of common vision. Gotta love Lovecraft, man. There's a note here. This is the case of Charles Dexter Ward, is where that comes from. Moving on. The unnameable realities are denizens of the tunnels of Set, which swarm with the shells and shadows of things that have not yet been entified, but which tend to become. Their subtle stresses in the ether are the mirrored yet unmanifest latencies of the magician himself. Their subtle stresses in the ether are the mirrored yet unmanifest latencies of the magician itself. Their subtle stresses in the ether are the mirrored yet unmanifest latencies of the magician himself. If it's repeated, it's important. The fluid plasma of the astral light that permeates the tunnels is alive with potential that becomes manifest only when it comes to the surface of the tree, splits into myriad forms, and swarms through the black hole in space represented by Da'at, the gateway to the abyss. The manifestation of the non-manifest is affected, magically speaking, via the lunar current which characterizes the high priestess of this kala in her virginal, unawakened, or dreaming phase. The verse in the grimoire applicable to this kala reads, "Now hath Nuit veiled herself, that she may open the gate of her sister." Not two women, but one only, is implied by this statement. Nuit veils herself in sleep, i.e., she becomes virginal, menstruous, in order to open the gate of her sister, the gate of dreams. In a naturalistic sense, the veil is the clothing assumed by primitive women at the onset of puberty. In a physiological sense, it is the unruptured hymen. When Nuit opens at the gate, she veils herself and is therefore able to divine by dreams seen in the mirror of magical sleep or trance. This is the sense in which virginity, or the state of sleeping, is here intended. In another sense, the opening of the gate refers to the gate of the mother of Path 15, wherein the unmanifest is made manifest as the birth of the child through the gateway of matter. But this is a later formula, and belongs properly below the abyss, whereas the gate here intended is the gate of the abyss itself. Okay. The disease typical of this path is, not surprisingly, subsumed under the general label menstrual disorders. But it should be understood that whereas this disease is applicable to the path, the corresponding disorders obtaining in the tunnel beneath the path, I'm going to reread that. But it should be understood that whereas this disease is applicable to the path, the corresponding disorders obtaining in the tunnel beneath the path comport disorders of the lunar current itself, and the consequent spawning of Lemurian horrors. This is substantiated by the magical weapon of the path, the bow and arrow. And the tarot trump attributed to this kala, the high priestess, is shown with the bow and arrow across her thighs. The bow is also a glyph of the rainbow, which has a direct mystical connection with the lunar formula. So we're referring to the Crowley Harris high priestess, not the Waite Smith Coleman deck. So, the symbolism of the bow as the emblem of Sothis, the star of Set, and of the rainbow has been treated in detail in the 7th chapter of Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God. Here it is necessary merely to note that in ancient Hebrew, the name of the rainbow, Chesheth, or Keshed, is a Kabbalistic synonym of Kadosh. Wow. A method of sexual magic involving the use of lunar current. But Kadosh also means holy. So yeah, that's interesting. Interesting. I never realized that was... is it an acronym? Chesed, Kadosh. Yeah, it's an acronym, right? Not a synonym. Anyway, or maybe I'm wrong. So, here we go. This form of occultism is sometimes confused with homosexual techniques that are in no way cognate, says Kenneth Grant. I have not had enough experience in those matters to have an opinion. Okay. The specific magical formula of Kala 13 is Alim. A-L-I-M. Probably Aleph Lamed Yod. Aleph Lamed Yod Mem. The specific magical formula of Kala 13 is Alim, the number of which, 81, is the number of witchcraft presided over by Hecate, or Hecate, the frog-headed goddess. It is necessary to guard against interpreting the term witchcraft in its usually accepted sense, which does not pertain to these higher levels of the tree. The real meaning of witchcraft is to be sought in the image of the frog, which has a secret significance for initiates that is far closer to the concept of Lovecraft's Batrachian fantasies, Batrachian fantasies, than it is the puerile assessment of the subject by medieval churchmen, witch hunters, and present-day revivalists. Yes, folks, witchcraft is not wishcraft. Okay, it can be, but doesn't have to be. The frog, or Hecht, was an early symbol of the transformer from aquatic to terrestrial life, naturally. It was chosen by the initiates of the Draconian Mysteries as a symbol of that which transformed in the waters of the abyss and came upon dry land. It was chosen by the initiates of the Draconian Mysteries as a symbol of that which transformed in the waters of the abyss and then came upon dry land. In other words, it was a glyph of the invader from the waters of space, i.e., from the other side of the tree. Furthermore, the frog's curious leapings suggested the formulae whereby certain paths of the tree could be crossed or vaulted. Note: the voltigeurs of the cult of the Black Snake, discussed in Cults of the Shadow, Chapter 9. Okay. In Egypt, the transformer, as the Hecht, was, and this is spelled H-E-K-T. In Egypt, the transformer, as the Hecht, was incorporated in the Ur-Hekau, U-R-H-E-K-A-U, Ur-Hekau, the mighty one of enchantments, which was the prototype of the magical wand, whereby the priest opened the mouth of the dead and transformed the mummy into a living spirit. Thus the dead, this side of the tree, became the Kus, or living spirit, the other side. The number of the frog is 353, which is also that of Nagash, N-G-S-H. I'm assuming Nun Gimelshin, meaning sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse. From the Egyptian nak, to fornicate. Fornicate. The name Hecate means 100, which is the number of Koph, the back of the head, or cerebellum, where, as Crowley notes, the creative or reproductive force is primarily situated. 353 is also the number of the initials of the two magical instruments, the phallus and the kteis, which in conjunction engender the illusion of the universe. The frog, Hecate or Hecate, is therefore the leaper or jumper in the sexual sense as well as the mystical sense, wherein the adept uses the formula of the voltigeurs at the back of the tree. The bow appears in connection with the earliest African symbolism of the 13th Kala, where it is associated with the hunter and moonlight of Kosi. The reference is to the lunar current, the two sacred lagoons, Togo and Onke, or Once. It's O-N-C-E. Togo and Once, Togo and Once, sorry folks, don't know how to pronounce that, are symbolic of this Kala. Togo, which means literally red water, formed the basis of the Egyptian pool of Punt, or Red Sea, pool of Punt, P-U-N-T. The lagoons played an important part in the administration of law in Africa. The earliest laws, or taboos, T-A-B-U-S, maybe taboos. It might be taboos, but typically a taboo is like an anti-law, so that would be strange. Anyway, the earliest laws were connected with physiology and the phenomena of menstruation and the rite connected with its onset and subsidence. The rite, R-I-T-E, time, thus became the rite, R-I-G-H-T, time, for sexual coupling. And infringements of taboo were visited with severe punishment. Okay, so T-A-B-U, T-A-B-O-O. It is at this primordial level that the idea of guilt became associated with sexual intercourse. It should be understood, however, that the birth of sin, which occurred at such an early period in the evolution of society, was the actual beginning of time itself, in the sense that menstruation was one of the first signs of a period or cycle of time noted by primitive man. Makes sense? The earliest probably being light and dark, day and night. It was after these observations, not before, that the division of the year into periods became increasingly more detailed and complex. The recurrence of physiological phenomena was primary and drew man's attention to the recurrence of celestial phenomena. Yeah. Firstly, the stellar appearances and disappearances, risings and settings, then the lunar phases, and finally the solar cycle, when time became fully evolved and the year as we know it was calculated. Prior to the earliest observation of physiological phenomena, that is when the time was not known, much less registered, chaos reigned. Naturally. But, inevitably, the forces of chaos were drawn into the vortex of time. Wow, what a way to say that. Inevitably, the forces of chaos were drawn into the vortex of time, and mythology contains accounts of the conflicts that raged between the giants of the abyss, which occurred outside time, and which had elemental types as their vehicles, and new types that were established in the form of stellar, lunar, and finally solar deities. Stellar, lunar, solar. The latter were the chronotypes, the gods of time, or chronology. All of these were anthropomorphized and became the various gods and goddesses that were finally attributed to the planets, which were considered as the vehicles of their powers. Hence, the first 10 paths of the tree are attributed to Earth, Luna, Mercury, Venus, Sol, Jupiter, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. The 13th Kala is thus essentially and very peculiarly the Kala of Kali, time, and of Kronos or Chronos and the chronotypes. Makes sense that it would be an abyss. It is the Kala of time, so to speak. All right, so that will complete this chapter in the Nightside of Eden. We still have 2 more sources to cover, so it's going to be a little bit of a longer video today, but I'm sure we'll be all right. Excuse me. Moving on to The Shadow Tarot by Linda Falorio. Another quick glance at the card here, just so you can all see it. Okay. This is the Priestess, or the shadow of the Priestess. By the image-generating power of the back brain, the world is dreamed into existence, and thus we create our preferred realities. Gargophias provides access to the tunnel of Naught, N-O-T to N-A-U-G-H-T. The great negative, La, Lilith, Lady of Night, of Sevech, Kefech, Kepsh, of the seven stars. Here, she is Egyptian Ur-Hakau, mighty one of the enchantments, gesturing to her attendant stars that mark the stellar gate into the earth web. Her power is parthenogenesis, or self-fertilization, feminine creation, as recorded in the earliest divine myths. Squatting on the sigil of Gargophias is Hecht, or Hecate, frog glyph of extraterrestrial invaders from the waters of space and the vicinity of the Pleiades. So just a moment here. If you're following along this series, you can sort of see that Kenneth Grant was a very large basis for some of Linda Falorio's work, and Linda Falorio and Kenneth Grant were both a very heavy basis for Asenath Mason. We stand on the shoulders of giants. By the image-generating power of the back brain, or sorry, I skipped a section. They embody, I will start over. Squatting on the sigil of Gargophias is Hecate, the frog glyph of extraterrestrial invaders from the waters of space and the vicinity of the Pleiades. They embody amphibious atavisms that enter our dimension from the portal of the back brain, cerebellum. These are the voltigeurs, that leapers, who traverse strange states and the inverted dimensions of the backside of the tree of life. By the image-generating power of the back brain, webs of dream are spun from the miasma of the lunar flux, spawning Lemurian horrors, teratomas arising from that stratum of pre-human consciousness that stretched long ages before the epoch of Atlantis. Patiently, passively, apparitions build. As a pearl grows bathed in the successive layers of the nacre? I guess the nacre is probably the film that coats the pearl. As a pearl grows bathed in the successive layers of the nacre, thus world is dreamed into existence by the ancient one who slumbers in the deeps of unknown space. Yet not all that lives has the right to continued life. This is the cruelty, the horror of existence, and its ultimate irrationality, that the prerogative of the goddess is culling. She reserves the right to kill her offspring, to weed out the undesirable, the unfit for life. She cares not for our complaints, nor for solar ideals of justice, but bids us to laugh, to delight in the Maya dance of dream illusions. Gargophias meditation. In the tunnel of Gargophias is the power of the feminine, bringing us to God. Here is the non-reflective power of movement and dreams, the power of clairvoyance and contact with spirit helpers. Here is the instinctive power of the artist to fashion living souls from the substance of their own ectoplasm. Magic is exuded from the inner core. Abundant creativity upwells from an inexhaustible inner source. Here, too, is 21st century science, space migration, genetic engineering, tinkering with the archetypal blueprints of life's proliferation. And here is the attendant possibility of spawning Frankenstein horrors based upon mutation of the DNA. Those terrifying mutations of past and future selves, non-viable evolutionary dead ends such as the Nephilim, wrought questing to create perfect worker servants of the gods. The need for working with the energies of Gargophias may be signaled by our experiencing in ourselves, for encountering in others, feelings and expressions of reverence for life for its own sake, without regard to use form, will, desire. We may find an overly masculine, yang, aggressive orientation to action on the world, as well as belief in the collective dream as objective reality. Here too may be found inability to dream, or uncontrollable nightmares. Here may be experienced a lack of visual imagination, of poetry, and of romance in one's life. A sense of general creative drought. Okay, it's not a beer. A sense of general creative drought that signals a lack of connection to the world of spirit. That leads to lack of ideals and hope and vision of the future. Danger and delight lie in the compelling temptation to turn one's back upon the objective world, to become forever lost in a forest of alluring, solitary fantasy, pulled to dissolution in the waters of deep space, higher, higher, into the void of the absolute. Last but not least, we'll cover the path working from the tunnels of Set. This video is getting a little bit long, but that's okay. I've got all day. I don't mind. As you gaze at the sigil, chant or vibrate the name of the guardian to attune your consciousness and subconscious mind to the frequency of the tunnel. At the same time, envision the image coming alive, morphing and growing until you see it spreading before you like a landscape you can enter. Visualize clouds of thick mist flowing through the sigil into your ritual space, enveloping around you and blurring the border between the planes. They carry the metallic smell of blood, female sexual fluids, and sparkles of silver and gold stellar energy. When you feel ready to travel into the tunnel, extinguish the candles and close your eyes. See the vision of the entrance to the realm building in your inner mind, and send a message to the guardian to guide you through the experience. Visualize that for a moment everything fades away and the whole world disappears. Then the darkness around you crystallizes into a scene. You stand in front of a portal that looks like the mouth of a primal being, huge and gaping. It also resembles female genitals, and carries characteristic smell of blood and female sex. It drips blood, which falls on you, and soon you are covered in the red substance from your feet to the top of your head. At this moment, you enter the portal and let it take you to the other side. You emerge in a temple in the shape of a frog, with even more blood covering everything inside. The temple is empty, and the only thing you see is a silver chalice placed on a simple stone altar. As you approach, you notice that it is filled with blood as well, but it is not static. It moves and changes its shape as if it were alive. You let a few drops of your own blood fall into the chalice, thinking at the same time of things that you want to manifest in your life. In response, the blood disappears and transforms into a red mist from which emerges the guardian of the tunnel. She is dressed in a dark blue hooded cape, and surrounded by 7 shining stars. When she gets closer, she directs these stars into your third eye. You can feel your head exploding, and then everything disappears again. For a moment, you cannot see, but after a while, your awareness shifts to a completely new form of seeing, which is neither outer nor inner, but something in between, as if you were dreaming. Open yourself to whatever may come to you in this dreaming trance, and when the visions fade away, travel back to your body and return to your normal consciousness. Open your eyes and close the working for the day. There you go. I don't think we're going to cover any more personal visions or anything like that. That might be a different series. But anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week. And yeah, Thanks again. Take care.